Italy has welcomed an apology from the European Commission President Ursula Von Der Leyen, calling it an important act of truth. Speaking at the European Parliament on Thursday, von der Leyen said Brussels wasn't there when Italy needed help responding to the outbreak. Italian Foreign Minister Luigi Di Maio said Brussels must now have the courage to defend and safeguard all of its member states, adding that its economic response to the crisis is one of the most important negotiations in our history. Let's find out a little bit more. Our correspondent Shona Murray is in Dublin. Morning, Shona. What was the strategy behind the apology that we heard yesterday? Because we spoke to Darren, our political editor, yesterday, and he said it was a little bit of a surprise. We've heard Italy's response to it. How are other member states responding to the apology?
Well, I think, Rosie, they're welcoming it. And most importantly, there's been a strong acknowledgement over the past few weeks and months that the EU, as one diplomat said to me last night, was embarrassing and catastrophic in the areas of solidarity and coordination, particularly in the early days of the outbreak of this pandemic. As we know, Italy is the country that has suffered the most when it comes to the death toll and has the gravest numbers. But we have to remember, Rosie, that when the story of this pandemic is written, it'll be the fact that some member states blocked the exportation of important medical supplies and medical equipment to Italy in the early stages, and that is a really sorry tale for Europe to sell. The other point, of course, is that Italy is a country that has been vehemently in support and demanding a form of joint debt issuance among member states for the financial response to this crisis. We heard Ursula von der Leyen saying yesterday that, actions needed to happen now if the apology was going to be worth it. And she listed some of the responses from member states like Germany, like Poland, like Romania, doctors helping Italian patients, moving Italian patients to various hospitals. But now there also has to be a proper financial response. And it appears in Italy that the agreement from the Eurogroup last week, which didn't allow for things like corona bonds or joint debt issuance, that has actually annoyed very many in the Parliament in Italy, and it will probably be put to the EU leaders next week at this European Council meeting. So there's another reason why Italy, of course, is being spoken to. And on top of that, Rosie, if you look at Italy over the past couple of years, maybe 5 years or so, it has already had a sense of abandonment from the European Union in relation to the refugee crisis. And the level of Euroscepticism has gone way up in Italy. In fact, even at the end of last year, only around 37% of people in Italy supported EU membership. So really, a lot of work has to be done to get that sense of solidarity back into Italy, a founding EU member state, as we know.
The European Parliament is holding day 2 of its plenary, of course, happening sort of digitally over video link. What are MEPs going to be voting on?
Yeah, and there's sort of one main resolution. It's the EU action and response to combating the COVID-19 disease and its consequences. And it's a very long resolution that will be legally binding. It has various economic measures to it, but also other measures acknowledging the fact that solidarity is actually a legal issue within the treaties, and also acknowledging that this situation brings the EU to a crossroads that will determine its future. And you mentioned there that it will be done remotely, because I've been speaking to several MEPs who said that is very cumbersome. And so the whole voting system will take all day, because each amendment, each element has to be voted on individually. The MEP from the remote place needs to print out the vote and email and scan it in, which takes